So I've been working away recently on a longer form video that is taking far too long to come out. So I decided to give myself a break and see what the Game Awards had to offer. And looking at the comments, people were less than happy to say the least. People were annoyed with the lack of Stellar Blade, people were annoyed that somehow Star Wars Outlaws made it onto the list, and people were annoyed that once again indie games had been snubbed for a lot of AAA garbage. Again, honestly, why is Star Wars Outlaws on there? That is criminal. However, there is one criticism that stood out to me, and in all honesty, I have to be bold. I dare to say what no other will say. I will stand above the crowd. Shadow of the Erdtree is absolutely deserving of Game of the Year, and the gamers are in the wrong for questioning its presence there.
Kill him. Kill him now.
Yes, I know. I'm a gamer and I like Elden Ring. What can I say? I guess you could call me a true maverick at heart. But in all honesty, I just got really annoyed by this statement because it feels the argument people just repeat and repeat boils down to it's DLC, so it can't be there. I was going to leave it alone, not touch it. It's one of those ones where it's like, you know what? You're entitled to that opinion. That's fine. Unfortunately, I then saw an article from Forbes named Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree should not win or be nominated for Game of the Year 2024. Now, after reading this article, I can say right now, it could be rage bait. It could be made for me, the angry nerd, to click and make a video about it. And if it was, well done. I'm incredibly riled up. Golf clap. However, I think the comments made in this article are incredibly disingenuous, made in bad faith, straight up wrong, and kind of sad in general, which we'll get onto later. But first, let's break down the first key point that people keep on saying, that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree shouldn't be listed as Game of the Year. It's officially a DLC, and DLC is not a game. In this article, it starts off with saying, there was really only one major controversy anyone was talking about after the 2024 Game Award nominations went out yesterday. This year, it was prominently broadcast that DLC and expansions would be eligible for all categories, including Game of the Year, and such the stellar Elden Ring expansion, Shadow of the Erdtree, was nominated multiple times. First off, when Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree first came out, everyone agreed that this could have been a sequel. There was that much content in the game. Everyone lauded how much content was compacted in this DLC and was praised for essentially making a sequel to the Game of the Year 2022 in just 2 years. But ugly, that's just fans glazing it, you say. Alright then, fair enough. Then let's see what the definition of what a sequel is. A game sequel is a video game that continues or expands on the story of an earlier game. Sequels are often set in the same fictional universe as the original game and usually follows the events of the original chronologically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Alright, so you've got an arbitrary definition that matches the DLC. That's not really what we're looking at here, is it? So what else you got? Okay, final one. Let's break it down to see what should be in a sequel from a simple checklist. Is it a new world? Yes, and it's nearly as big as the original map, which is insane. Does it have new bosses and mini-bosses? Yes, to sometimes infuriating degrees. Does it have new weapons, outfits, spells, incantations, etc.? Yes, entirely new weapons, entirely new outfits, spells, incantations, and all kinds of stuff. Does it have a new story and expands the universe's lore? Yes, and in some ways even worse. I'm looking at you, Radahn and Mikola.
What are you doing, step bro?
Does it have new gameplay mechanics? Several, in fact, using weapon arts, the Skadoo systems, and various other ones you can find in the game. And how long is it? The DLC is about 40 to 60 hours on your first playthrough, which is insane. So from the sequel checklist, it seems like, yes, offers enough to be considered a sequel by all the measures we put in place to see what a sequel is. And sequels are allowed to be in the Game of the Year category. I think we can agree it's petty to argue over the fact it's an arbitrary tag that whittles down just to semantics. So just because it's a DLC in name alone does not mean it doesn't deserve to be there. And for me, I think this is fairly debunked by saying there is enough effort, there is enough content for this to be considered a complete game. Next point, it takes up a slot for other games. So the article continues to say, I previously thought that the nominating body would agree with this and therefore not actually nominate Erdtree. That did not happen. So now I'm not going to predict that Erdtree can't win Game of the Year because clearly it can and might. This feels bad, especially in the Game of the Year category. It is taking up a slot that could be occupied by half a dozen other games who would consider even a nomination a big win. But here it is, and we don't know what number 7 might have been. There's a lot to unpack here, but first off, and I mean this, it doesn't take up a slot. If it truly took a slot away, why the hell is Black Myth Wukong there? A game that was touted as another Souls-like. If we truly thought it took up a slot, why put another another similar game in the ranking? Why have Rebirth and ReFantazio in there? They're both JRPGs, so if we got rid of Rebirth and Wukong, we could have Hades 2 and Tekken 8, giving roguelikes and fighting games a chance of getting Game of the Year. Or screw both of them. Let's get Satisfactory on there. They were finally released this year, and it's a simulation game that hardly ever gets Game of the Year nominees. Actually, why not have 20 slots and we get 20 games in there, and we have every good game on there this year? Actually, not even that. Let's get UFO 50 there 50 times, as there's 50 games in that one, and it covers a whole wide variety of genres. This isn't fair. They stole the slots. Stop the count. Do you see how this sounds? Listen, if your favorite game didn't make the list, I am genuinely gutted for you, but also it's your favorite, and that's all it needs to be. I mean, look at it this way. If you found a game this year that you think's better than all 6 of these amazing games, as playing 4 out of 6 of them myself, I can say these are some pretty great games. Hats off to you, and I hope they make more of that game in the future for yourself. But I think we need to go into the words a bit more here and see the writer doesn't even bring this mythical number 7 to the table. It shows how much they don't believe in this mythical 7 being better than Erdtree. And if you're struggling to pluck out a name out of the thousands of other games that came out this year, then I'm sorry, it seems to me you wholeheartedly do not believe that there is a game better than Erdtree or the other 5 nominations up there. This whole mythical 7th best game is a scapegoat to drag a well-made, fantastic game down for something that doesn't exist, and it completely ignores what the point of a game is meant to be in the first place, which is fun. But that's where I get into the next part of this article. Shadow of the Erdtree is the most fun I've had playing anything this year. No, it should not be classified as a full game and takes up space in all these categories after Elden Ring itself dominated the Game of the Awards during its release year. Okay, just to clarify, the writer says it's the most fun they had this year, and they still think it shouldn't be there. Even the way they word it sounds like they're trying not to say game. I've had playing anything this year. Anything. Be it playing a game of football with friends, playing a board game with family members, playing anything. Because this person knows deep down the line is, I have had with any game this year, but they know that would instantly invalidate their argument. When we're looking at games, at the end of the day, if we're not voting for the one we had the most fun with, you know we're already cooked. As whether you're struggling to survive in Silent Hill 2, building a factory in Satisfactory, or beating the shit out of each other in Tekken 8, you're having fun. It doesn't matter if it's being scared, feeling puzzled, or frustrated that you can't win against an opponent. The reason you're staying and coming back is because deep down, you're having some type of fun. People relax in different ways, but at the end of the day, it's all fun. And to think the game you've had the most fun with all this year isn't deserving of even a nomination just shows how much of a disconnect we're having with a product that is meant to entertain us. So yes, the Shadow of the Erdtree is not taking a spot away from anyone, because you know why? It's there. That's just it. If it wasn't there, people would argue, well, why is Shadow of the Erdtree not there? It's just as good as any other full price game. It got chosen. It's not robbed a spot. If the Shadow of the Erdtree doesn't deserve to be there, it won't win. And if it doesn't win, please then tell me the game that is better than Astrobot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Black Myth Wukong, Metaphor ReFantazio, and Balatro, and tell me why that is better than every single one of them. Because the harsh truth is, people don't remember the other nominees in the Game of the Year award. They remember the Game of the Year. So if you think another game on the list is better, there's no point even arguing in the first place, because it's already there. And if you think something is better than all the rest of the ones on that list and it's not there, I'm sorry, that does suck. But if it is that good, believe me, Jeff Keighley reading it out on stage will not have that much effect on its future and memory. Let's get to the next point. You have to beat most of Elden Ring to play Shadow of the Erdtree, so it's locked off. The length of the game, the idea that it's longer and more substantive than many other nominees or full games, does not matter. The key factor here is that the expansion is not remotely standalone, but an offshoot of the main game where you have to play anywhere from 20 to 80 hours to even be strong enough to take on the boss required to even access the expansion. Okay, this is actually one of the more valid points, as fair enough, there are game sequels and standalones that don't require you to have previous knowledge of the franchise or beaten them to play it. Example, Left 4 Dead 2, God of War 2018, Borderlands 2, Silent Hill 2, etc, etc. These are all sequels that are enhanced by playing the original, but not required to get a still amazing gaming experience or access them. My counterpoint to this, however, is Tekken 3. So back in the day, shockingly, you didn't buy the extra characters in fighting games, and they weren't all unlocked at the start. Yep, when you boot up Tekken 3, you only get 10 out of the possible 20 characters. And I really want to play as Heihachi. That's the gaming experience I want. I played him in previous games, and him being in the game is the thing that sold me to get Tekken 3. However, I can't unlock him yet. I have to play the game a minimum of 8 times with 8 different characters characters who have all different playstyles, and only after completing that, I can finally start playing the game as I intended. I can't get this content until I finish all of the requirements to get there. Does that then invalidate my time getting to this point? Is it not considered a full game until I get the character I want to play as and the reason I got the game? No, of course not. Tekken 3 is still my favorite fighting game of all time, because guess what? It's fun up until the point of unlocking Heihachi, and it wasn't an issue to get to it. It was part of the experience. Getting to the baby section in Resident Evil 8, getting the gravity gun in Half-Life 2, the microwave tunnel in Metal Gear Solid 4, these peak moments and gameplay elements that can help define the game and are probably the thing that made you think, wow, this is going to be game of the year. It takes time to get to. It takes effort and it takes persistence. Does it mean those moments can't be considered when it's put as game of the year because you have to play the game to get there? No, of course not. Yes, you can't get to the DLC until you've defeated Radahn and Moog, but this isn't a chore to do. It's fun and still a part of the game. It's like saying, oh my god, to get to this delicious chocolate cake, I have to eat this beautifully cooked Neapolitan pizza that has all my favorite toppings on before I can have my dessert. Oh no, I am truly suffering, and because I can't have my chocolate cake at the start, it invalidates the meal and I won't be paying. Good day, sir. Forbes describing this as such an arduous task is incredibly disingenuous, because all games have sections you have to get to by playing most of it, and to just have this thing of, well, you have to play 20 to 80 hours to even be strong enough to do this section. Yes, you do, because guess what? 25 million people played this game and got a lot further than you think, so the DLC is for those people. Yes, you can't access it as a standalone game, but guess what? If you played Elden Ring, you are probably going to play the DLC, and if you didn't play Elden Ring and you want to play the DLC, to play Elden Ring, you kind of need to play the game first, because it explains all its mechanics to you, instead of just doing a standalone game and giving baby's first Elden Ring again for 2 hours when players are ready just to get in there. I just don't get how saying the original game is gatekeeping. At that point, not having a PS5 console is gatekeeping, as I only have an Xbox and can't play God of War Ragnarok, so that game can't be considered for game of the year, as there's a barrier for me to play the game. But ugly bartender, you have to purchase an entire other game to play the DLC. That's fine. The price of Elden Ring right now can be, with the DLC, is currently $38.99. That's nearly 160 hours worth of gameplay and is still cheaper than other slop like Star Wars Outlaws and Concord. Yeah, it's a great deal. Yes, you will never be able to play Shadow of the Erdtree by itself right now, but I think this being used as a way to gatekeep it from Game of the Year is a redundant point, because like I said earlier, because a game's not on every console or every PC, it can't be Game of the Year, because at that point there's a gate for people to actually get into the game. It's just ridiculous. And what if FromSoftware just turned around and then all of a sudden made the game standalone? They could do it, I guess. Doom did that with Ancient Gods, or GTA did that with its multiplayer. It could just turn around and make it a standalone game. Does that mean then that year we put it in Game of the Year award because now it's just been slapped on a bot? Like, you don't need the original game to play this. Does that now make it some magical thing that it does deserve to be it? No, I don't think it does. I think it deserves to be it now. But yeah, I know what I'm trying to say, but maybe not in the best way. Let's move on to the final one. They invented this just for FromSoftware. This feels like a rule that was only emphasized this year, in particular to accommodate Shadow of the Erdtree. I'm not sure this existed, say, last year when Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty was one of the best gaming experiences of the year, but not a full game. There's some debate about whether this rule was only just made or whether it was only highlighted this year. Jeff Keighley has not been especially clear on this fact. That's because he doesn't have to be especially clear on this fact, because first off, there has already been precedence for this, with The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine, which won Best RPG at the Game Awards in 2016. XCOM's 2 War of the Chosen expansion pack was nominated for Best Strategy Game in 2017, and funnily enough, the game the article mentions, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, was actually nominated for Best Narrative in 2023. That only took me, what, 2 seconds of research? So it's not new or being emphasized this year, Forbes article writer, and it's still stupid we're talking about it now. If you do the research, the game you did mention did get nominated last year, but whatever at this point. Let's see how this clown ends the article. This isn't the right call. There should be a DLC expansion category. And even if that might have been an easy win for Shadow of the Erdtree, it should not be taking up space in all these other categories, however good it may be. So what's the point? Why make a category for something we know it could instantly win, just so a load of other DLCs can go up against it and be considered far worse? This is just a bad article. It's a bad take. It's bad, bad, bad.
Your music's bad and you should feel bad.
The Game Awards are, at the end of the day, as much as I hate to admit it, they are important. They're important enough for a lot of studios, and they hold enough prestige that you should vote for the most deserving experience and project, because it does help talented people and studios work on future cool projects. Elden Ring being there as a DLC does not diminish the efforts of the other games on that list or the ones that didn't make it. It demonstrates and showcases what the best a AAA studio should be doing and the reason they receive such acclaim and recognition. It shows that even a DLC by name alone, created by FromSoftware, which again, they've been knocking it out the park to say the least in the last few years, is better than the rest of the AAA, live service, battle pass, incomplete bollocks that keeps on being pushed and pushed by these huge companies. And it's a signal to them to do better. If FromSoftware sweeps this again, it will demonstrate the embarrassing state the AAA industry is in, that for the last 3 years, the only thing getting recognized is Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3. Again, both masterclasses in game design, storytelling, and at the end of the day, what I want to come back to, fun. I am not of the opinion that any others on the top 6 list shouldn't be there. They are all wonderful in their own right, and hell, there should be more indie games on there. The indie game scene has been killing it right now. Hidden gems keep on popping up, and more they are entering the top 10 lists, as you can see from some examples here. But to gatekeep Shadow of the Erdtree, an actual well-made AAA product that has love and attention and effort put into it from becoming Game of the Year, just because it has a redundant DLC tag associated with it, it's the wrong message we are sending, and I just don't think it's one we should be doing. It's not only an insult to the 400 plus people who worked on it, it's an insult to you as a consumer, saying you will only recognize something if it's in a shiny new box, if it has a redundant subtitle underneath it, or if they slap a lovely little 2 on the title. Like, dare I say, one of the most ridiculous sequels of all time, Overwatch 2. And I don't think many of us want more of them in the world. Art and experience shouldn't be whittled down to such petty semantics and ridiculous classifications that at the end of the day doesn't respect the time, effort, and craftsmanship that is in every aspect of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Respect art, respect the people who make art, and respect yourselves. You deserve games as great as Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. However, all of this, as I've just said, just like the Forbes writer, as wrong as he may be, is my opinion. And everyone is very much entitled to it. So, please let me know your opinion in the comments down below. Are you going to be watching the Game Awards? I hope you are. And if I don't see you soon, I'll see you next time.